What's good, friends? Welcome into Fantasy Focus Football along Mike Clay. Ooh, did I just swear there? Sorry about that.
Watch your mouth,
My
sir.
bad.
Apparently, Mike Clay
Family
is
show.
2 words that you can't say on live internet TV.
They gave me the button here. I have a button.
I hope everyone else heard that and it wasn't just in our ears.
I think it was just in our own.
But Mike Clay and Field Yates, very excited to be here with you guys. We have only one more sleep until football. How exciting is that?
It's very exciting, especially because the Philadelphia Eagles are at home hosting in week. What does that mean, by the way? If the Eagles are at home Thursday night, week 1?
Oh, that means they won the Super Bowl. Got it.
Oh.
They did.
I knew what he was doing there.
I mean, it's going to be a tough battle, though, against Micah Parsons and the Cowboys.
Oh,
wait a
wait.
minute.
That's my joke, just for the record.
What, that's your joke?
Yeah, remember I mentioned the fact that he's been traded to the Packers like 4
Oh,
times?
yeah, you did. Well, you know, I just steal your material. That's how I make comedy gold, okay?
Yeah.
That's right.
It's a little bit bittersweet for me. I can't wait for football. I'm obviously so pumped for tomorrow night and Friday night, and of course another Saturday slate of college football, then Sunday and Monday for the NFL. I have 4 drafts left, at least one which includes you guys tomorrow for we're going to be doing the FF Now League.
Yep.
I am pretty much resigned to the fact that I am unlikely to have any teams in which I drafted Jamar Chase, Bijan Robinson, or Jahmyr Gibbs. And that's because I've only had one top 3 pick. I don't know the order of a couple of the drafts that are left over, so I'll find out an hour before the drafts begin. But there's a chance, obviously, there's a stronger chance that I don't have a top 3 pick than I do have a top 3 pick. And so, yeah, I am ruining the possibility of having none of those guys on my roster to begin the season.
I want to know, like, this is I mentioned this last week, interesting case study. I want to know if you have, like, the best year or worst year of your life in terms of fantasy. And if you have the best year, I want to study that.
Yeah, I don't know the answer.
Your drafts.
You know,
So
I made a mistake probably. I had a top 3 pick, and I thought, just based off of the way that league works, that it's a little bit it's heavier wide receiver. So I felt like Justin Jefferson at 3 was the pragmatic play. But I ended up taking I could have taken Jahmyr Gibbs there. He was available. But yes, so bittersweet, but I'm ready to roll. And we have a huge show today because rankings are back. They're now available on ESPN.com.
Yes.
Not just final draft rankings. If you're doing a draft either tonight or tomorrow, you can draft, by the way, all the way until Sunday slate begins. Like, you're allowed to do that. Obviously, you already know the outcome of both the Eagles, Cowboys, and the Chiefs Chargers game on Friday night as well, but you can do it all the way until week 1 begins, but most drafts taking place or have taken place already or will take place tonight. Again, I've got 2 tonight. I've got 1 during the day and 2 tonight. So 3 drafts in total today.
This is always a fun week because we're like finishing up our drafts, still updating season-long rankings and projections, but also I just submitted names for talking points for FF Now on Sunday because we're on a week 1 as well. I keep going back and forth between season long and week 1. By the way, before we get started, I got you guys a little. I got the Fantasy Focus a little gift here. It was at my brother's wedding this weekend.
Oh, yeah, how was that?
It was an awesome weekend, but took the kids to the Crayola factory, which is just minutes away from the
No way.
the facility or the venue there in Pennsylvania, and you can make your own crayon here. So
What?
I made a little.
That crayon says ESPN Fantasy Focus on it.
With a little football right next to it. See
That's
I don't know if
incredible.
You can see that, but got us a little souvenir for our set, our lovely new set here we're building.
How awesome is that?
Does that happen to be Kelly Green? Is that what color that is?
Yeah, I did. I went with green because that's like our logo is green. So.
Sure. Yeah, it has nothing to do with the fact you're an Eagles fan.
We'll find a good spot for that. But anyway, yeah. Shout out to crayons
and to your brother and beautiful new wife for being able to get married.
Ryan. Yeah, well, we had an awesome.
You like her?
Lots of dancing.
Kidding. I asked you that last week.
I told her that story actually at the show.
That's
like
so
Field
good.
kept asking me if I actually liked you.
Well, on today's show, Field already kind of alluded to it. We're talking about the hardest players to rank heading into week 1. And then Mike kind of brought another segment to the table that we'll dive into a little bit later on in the show, but just talking about a couple of players that we have ranked as starters that potentially went undrafted in fantasy leagues.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, like late round picks who we feel comfortable starting in week 1, which I don't think every year this is a necessary topic, but I feel like we have a whole bunch of guys like that have a lot of
if you catch
early
the ball for a living.
Yes.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yep.
A lot of early season value, especially here in week 1.
I want to ask this question before we move on. You just mentioned that you had your couple drafts and you won't know where you're picking yet. Would you rather do the draft randomized 1 hour before, or do you want to know where you're picking so you can start preparing when you head into drafts? Which one do you like?
I have found that a lot of people that I play with like to have an idea of where they're picking because it might be one of the only drafts they do. Like they might just play in one league, they might play in 2 at maximum. we're sickos, and I'm playing in 15 leagues this year, so I'm sort of like, the chips will fall wherever they fall.
We've mock draft from literally every single position multiple times. Yeah.
So I've done a couple practice drafts. I love that new feature on the ESPN app. We have the 16-team War Room League tonight. I have pick 9. Ooh. So I'm certainly open to suggestions in the chat. Maybe our production team can see what they're thinking, but I got to figure by the time I get around to pick number 9, the big 5 plus CeeDee Lamb and Christian McCaffrey are gone. So could this be a Malik Neighbors, Puka Nacua, Ashton Genty, Amon-Ra St. Brown? Certainly a lot of good options there at number 9, but a critical decision to make.
Well, if you are hanging out in chat, our buddy Eric Moody is hanging out with you right now. Eric's going to be in the chat chilling with all of our friends for the entirety of the show, so make sure you give him a little bit of love.
Yeah.
And one more person that I want to give a little bit of love to is Trophy Smack. They've been able to outfit us with a bunch of really fun stuff. Go to trophysmack.com, use the promo code FOCUS10 for 10% off your order, whether you want a trophy or a turnover chain or a belt or a loser punishment like a toilet seat. There's a lot of different things to be able to get over at trophysmack.com, so go check them out in order to get something fun for your league.
Let's do it.
Let's dive into the hardest players to rank heading into week 1. Pretty self-explanatory, guys. We know exactly what this one is. Field, I'm going to start with you. Yeah. Who was your hardest player to rank? Are they in order, or do you just have 3 names you brought to the table?
I came with 3 names, and I think they fit into different criteria for me. They are hard to rank, but the reasons why they're hard to rank are a little bit different. And I also felt like this is one of our last chances to discuss players we haven't talked that much about so far this month.
Fair.
If I had told you at this time last year or the year prior that we would hardly talk about Chris Olave until September 3rd on the show, you'd probably be like, how is that possible? We have hardly talked about Chris Olave, which I think is almost exclusively a reflection of the fact that the Saints do profile as easily one of the worst teams in the NFL this year. Wouldn't surprise any of us if they are picking number 1 overall in 2026. On April 23rd. Also, the fact that Chris Olave had that very scary situation last year with his concussion. Yep. But I think Chris Olave is just a flat good player, very good player. But how much confidence can you have in him when Spencer Rattler is okay? He's by no means a great starting quarterback. He's probably one of the bottom 6 or 7 in terms of confidence that we have going into week 1 right now.
Yep.
But he did sling it a little bit last year with Chris Olave, and they had some huge games together where Olave was seen 14 targets in a game, and that's good enough, right? If you get that volume from Chris Olave, you're going to take it. But it feels like a guy who, there's a very small glimmer of hope that just like this would be not to the level that he was at last year. But it's not like Malik Neighbors had a whole lot going for him offensively last year. It was a terrible team with awful quarterback play, and he was a stellar fantasy wideout. I'm not banking on Chris Olave getting there, but I wanted to mention him in that construct because if you see a lot of targets and you're really good, it can lead to much better things than we have talked about during the preseason. So Chris Olave was tough for me. He's like a wide receiver 4 or 5 in week 1 in my rankings, but a player who has way more pedigree than a lot of the guys that we were talking about in that same range.
Consensus ranking wide receiver 37 at ESPN Fantasy.
And I feel like he and Rashid Shaheed were hard to rank all offseason long, which is why both of those were on my list. So I feel that's where we should go next because I cheated a little bit. I said Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed because I've struggled with them all offseason. Both of them have also played very little with Spencer Rattler so far. Chris Olave actually caught 4 or 5 targets from him for 54 yards last year, which isn't bad. But Rashid Shaheed, 7 targets, 1 catch for 11 yards.
Okay, so the game that I referenced where Olave had 14 targets, Rattler, it was a game where they played multiple quarterbacks, so that's my apology.
Yeah, so, what's also interesting here is who's the number 1 receiver for the Saints? Because last year through week 6, it was Rashid Shaheed pretty clearly. Yeah. He was getting carries, 6.8 targets per game as well. Had 15 points in 4 of his 6 games. So that's why he's tricky for me because I don't know where he really falls. Is he first or second on that depth chart, or are they going to spread it between the 2 guys? You also they traded for Valet from and Brandon Cooks. Yeah, so
Captain Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, no doubt. So all these guys are going to be involved, and obviously the big question mark is the quarterback situation. Is Spencer Rattler actually going to play better this season? Yeah. We don't know. It could be the worst quarterback situation in the NFL as well. He could be benched by week 3 for Tyler Shuck. So it's going to be Really fascinating to watch this work out. I have Chris Olave, by the way, ranked 37th this week. I have Shaheed at 52. So I do think Olave kind of reestablishes himself as the preferred guy there. But this is a really, really tricky situation because it could be very bad in New Orleans.
There's an obvious case, and I think a lot of Saints fans would probably be happy with this, that like, hey, if Chris Olave gets back to the form that we have seen earlier in his career, that he's the kind of guy you'd want to extend and keep around for a long time. If the Saints are fully committed to like a total blow it up situation, what an intriguing trade candidate Chris Olave would be.
Yeah,
right?
no doubt. By the way, we now that we're in week 1, I feel like we should mention the opposition because I think Arizona is one of the fascinating sleeper teams in the NFL this season, but their defense, especially the defensive line, edge rush, defensive interior is
really
fantastic.
Good. Yeah.
So, and their secondary is very young. I mean, the safeties we know are terrific. One of the best duos with Thompson and Baker for sure, but the corners are very young, and that could be a breakout group this year as well. So this could be kind of quietly a tough matchup for a New Orleans offense that needs an easy matchup in week 1.
I think the player that I drafted so far the most this year in real drafts, not mock draft, is the Arizona Cardinals defense.
Oh, really?
Because if you think about some of the
We're on the same
heavy hitting
page.
matchups that we have in week 1, like, are you drafting the Bills defense to then just not play them in week 1?
Oh, exactly.
Or
Right.
same thing,
Yeah.
the Ravens defense to not play them in week 1. Like the Chiefs draw the Chargers draw the Chiefs. Like these are all good defenses that draw terrible matchups in week 1.
I did the same thing.
The Eagles draw the Cowboys, right? Like there are a lot of super legit defenses that face super legit offenses in week 1. So I do love myself the Cardinals against the Saints.
I'm going to be streaming the Bengals this week too.
Yeah,
against
another good
Cleveland.
option. Yeah,
Why not?
Talk about them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I brought a wide receiver to the table as well for my first
do you
player.
got?
And Field, you kind of mentioned him a little bit yesterday, but I don't want to make this feel like we're going back to the well. However, one of the hardest players for me to rank in week 1 is Travis Hunter. The uncertainty here is just like super unknown. That's the killer. We got a bunch of positives, right? Liam Cohen. Fields, you mentioned this yesterday, and there's a lot of reasons to be excited about it. The Bucs were 4th in points per game last year. Jaguars were 27th. So we're really hoping that some of that kind of transitions over into this Jaguars offense. He's clearly the number 2 wide receiver in this offense, which I actually think is a positive. Him coming in, going to be playing both sides of the ball, not having to also feel like he's the number 1 alpha wide receiver. He's going to get that T. Higgins kind of setup, right? Where double teams are going to be on Brian Thomas Jr. or Jamar Chase in this scenario. And then he's going to get the hopefully single coverage or guys that are not quite as focused on him, which I think is also a positive. And then the options behind him are just super thin. Yeah. They don't have a lot of wide receivers. De'Ami Brown, Parker Washington, they just traded for Tim Patrick. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't feel like there is a lot of options there. So on top of that, I feel like this could be a really good matchup. Panthers are projected, and Mike, this came from your season prediction and power rankings, which is, plug your ears, but it was a really good article. I read through a bunch of stuff on that.
First time for everything, but yes, it was really good. Yeah.
But the Panthers are projected to give up the 3rd most points this season. Like, this is a spot where it feels like, okay, if we realize that this offense is going to take the jump that we think it's going to, we're projecting the Jaguars to get better. That's one of the uncertainties. What if they don't? What if Trevor Lawrence doesn't take the step that we think he is going to take, especially here just in week 1 alone? There's a lot that we think this team is going to be better. So not knowing how much is going to play on offense, not knowing how much is going to play on defense, all of these uncertainties, even though it's a really great matchup, kind of leads him to be a low-end flex play for me here in week 1 rather than like a high-end flex or maybe even a wide receiver 2.
So he probably is the poster child for this exercise. Like the reason why we had this conversation is probably because of Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
Right. And what we hope for, like I think where I've landed is what we hope for is that we get some level of clarity about a month into the season for Travis Hunter. Yes, we have a baseline that we think is going to be consistent going forward, and then we can just sort of say like, all right, hey, he's playing approximately this number of snaps per game on offense. Let's rank him as a maybe wide receiver 2, maybe wide receiver 3, maybe a flex option, maybe a wide receiver 4 going forward. That's where I kind of hope we get to for Travis Hunter, but it's why he has been the biggest moving target in all of fantasy football this year. I've been saying he has the single toughest player to rank/project in my time at ESPN.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I think we're kind of hoping he plays, accepting that he will play some defense, kind of hoping he plays 2/3 on offense, 1/3 on defense, something like that. I think would make a lot of sense.
Did you see the depth chart?
I did. He's a
starting wide receiver and a backup corner.
Yes, which is what we expected. I mean, the day they drafted him, you could look at their roster and say that's probably the scenario, right? He's going to be their number 2 receiver, and they're pretty good at corner. So he's offensively, it looks like he's primarily going to play inside. I would think, De'Ami Brown and Brian Thomas on the outside, and then out on the outside defensively because they have Jordan Lewis, who's one of the better nickel corners, slot corners in the NFL. So that's what I kind of expect. I think we'll see some defense, but a lot of offense this season. And by the way, the other variable here is he hasn't played in a little while. He's a little beat up. So how much
upper
is
body injury?
We're talking specifically week 1 ranking. So is he going to be a full go even in week 1 after missing some time? That's another factor here as well.
This is one of those teams that I think we've all just projected to take a step forward, and that ideally, like, Trevor Lawrence is going to become a better quarterback. Obviously, he didn't play, almost half the season. Yeah, but what if that doesn't happen? Like, can the Jaguars, if Trevor Lawrence doesn't take that step, will they be able to sustain 2 top 25 fantasy wide receivers for us?
I think that there's actually some evidence that like average to below average quarterback play can sustain top wide receiver production.
Oh yeah.
I'm not as worried about it, but I'm worried about, like, the Jaguars. Who was that?
Blake Bortles.
Yeah, he's done it. He had a top 5
done it in that same offense, right?
I always think about Jay Cutler back in the day. He was not fantasy relevant, but Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey are always, for a while, they were dominating. Last thing I'll say on this is, and I know that we don't do too much best ball content, Diami Brown's one of my favorite, like, last round of your best ball.
Yeah, baby. 100%.
He's just a speed demon. He got $10 million this offseason.
Yeah, guys like that are it's odd. It's like, I feel like he's going to be better for the team than in fantasy. Like, are you ever going to actually start him in fantasy?
That's why we're talking. That's why it's best ball, 100%. Because
best ball.
Yes,
I guess. Best ball, last round pick was what I was saying. In case others misinterpreted.
He'll line up as wide receiver too every now and then when Travis Hunter has got to take a breather after playing some defense. So that's totally part of the late round best ball.
All right, my next pick, staying in the AFC South, staying at wide receiver, Calvin Ridley. I don't think this is going to be a hard player to rank in most weeks, but Mike Clay does, I believe, one of the best columns in all of fantasy football that many, many people have tried to replicate and candidly have struggled to come anywhere close to Mike's quality. It is his wide receiver cornerback matchup.
It's going great for me.
You know what, Mike? The regular season is here. We're about to be serious.
That's right.
Wide receiver cornerback matchup. It is an invaluable resource. There is always something in there that intrigues me. I think it has opened people's eyes. There was a time on FF Now where it was like everybody was banging the DK Metcalf gavel, and Mike was like, I'm nervous about the guy this week. Like, I'm really nervous. And he had one catch. Everybody was like, holy crap, that guy Mike Clay knows exactly what he is talking about. He does, people. But if you were to make a list of the corner you would least like to see opposite, there we go, opposite a wide receiver, he just Pat Surtain.
Yeah, a little foreshadowing tomorrow's show, by the way.
The reigning defensive player of the year in the NFL, who I imagine will be opposite of Calvin Ridley.
Yes,
all of the snaps in week 1.
Yep.
Ridley, it is not a deep group behind him, right? The starters, and we were talking about this before the show, every NFL team released its unofficial depth chart yesterday. And we are not putting much stock collectively into when a rookie running back is listed as 4th or 3rd in the depth chart. We're talking about you, Bill Krosky-Merritt, and Travion Henderson. But we are noting when a rookie gets the bump up to the first team, right? And the starting wide receivers for the Tennessee Titans, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett, and Alec Ayomanor.
Yeah, your boy.
My deep sleeper there. So
you were talking about. And if Surtain's on Ridley this week, maybe he's one of those DFS or,
Stop it.
Yeah.
Talk about giving you a Puka Nacua week 1 type right out the gate.
That would be amazing. It would be awesome to see. So for me, it's like this is always the conundrum. Like, you draft a player, and there are probably people that went heavy at running back or grab one of the big 4 quarterbacks and a tight end, one of the top 2 tight ends, or maybe 3 if you include George Kittle. And it's like, bam, we've got ourselves Calvin Ridley is our second wide receiver. And then all of a sudden, like in week 1, you're like, damn it, can I even play the guy? He is going to be outside my top 25 of wide receivers this week.
Yeah, tough matchup for sure. And again, I won't say much more because we're going to talk about that tomorrow as well. Yep. So we don't want to double down too much. But
good pick by
more
me.
on that tomorrow.
All right, go ahead, Mike.
Next one for me, another wide receiver. We're talking a lot of wide receivers here today. Stephon Diggs.
Yeah,
for New England. First game at the Patriots. Obviously, last year in Houston, he was terrific out of the gate at least 6 targets in all 8 games, averaged over 15 fantasy points per game. But had that torn ACL, and we didn't think throughout a lot of the offseason that he was going to play in week 1. We thought he might start on PUP, which is common. But you also wonder if coming back this quickly means it'll be a bit of a slow start. Oftentimes, guys come back, and that the first full season takes them a while to get going. So it is good that he got his legs under him. He was ready to go well before the season started. You like that? But he's obviously, around age 30 now. You wonder, coming off an ACL at this age, what level he's going to be at this season. You have obviously Drake May. We like him a lot. But the part of it is it's like, okay, so all these variables, all the negatives I just laid out, you're like, do we just bench him? Like, it's just easy to say, let's just bench him in week 1 and see what happens, which is probably still the best strategy. But the matchup is really intriguing here. They're at home. The Raiders traveling all the way in from Las Vegas, and they have serious question marks at corner. They're going to start Eric Stokes, who didn't work out as a first-round pick in Green Bay. He's probably their number 1 corner. Darian Porter's the 3rd-round rookie. And then Darnay Holmes has been like bouncing around between occasionally a starting nickel in the NFL. That's probably their top 3 guys this week. So
I thought Darian Porter was one of the ultimate developmental guys in the draft. He's like 6'4", ran a 4.40 40 at the combine. He is super raw. He played 1 year of corner in college. He was a wide receiver and special teamer for 5 seasons.
He's going to have to cover Stephon Diggs a little bit this week. So
I mean, by the way, Diggs could see 12 targets this week.
Yeah,
totally.
No doubt about it.
Who else is competing for targets in that offense?
Yeah, or he's limited because he's not, all the way there yet, or he doesn't have the same explosion because he tore his ACL last year. That's why it makes it so hard to rank. And I believe that's the name of the segment, right?
It is, yes.
So I ranked him 42. I think 12-team leagues maybe is a flex option. Despite all the great matchup, I think it's best to avoid in week 1. But if you have him and you need someone, or you took Rashee Rice or Chris Godwin or something like that, and you need
Jordan Addison,
you need to fill him in to your flex, I think you can do it.
Gosh, that feels scary, though.
Yeah.
I mean, anytime you have a 30-year-old coming off an ACL injury to start him week 1 when we haven't really seen a lot of preseason action, it's the reason why he's so difficult to rank. I'm going to switch it over to running back. You guys mind? We talked about a lot of pass catchers so far.
I always appreciate that you ask for permission on the show.
Yeah.
No.
The answer is always yes.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Someone else.
Thank you for being a nice guy. I said nice things about you earlier in the show, Mike.
Yeah.
I don't
Pay it
understand.
back, will you, Clay?
I just wanted to try it. See if I say no,
what
happens.
Just try it on for size, see how it feels. No big deal. At running back, I think this is pretty obvious, but my running back that is hardest to rank for me is Breece Hall.
On the list.
Good call.
Vibes are just not great, obviously, coming out of that team. You got a rushing quarterback, and this is a bunch of stuff you guys probably already know, but rushing quarterback in Justin Fields, we're going to see what he looks like under center in week 1 for a full game. We also have Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis, who have both gotten a lot of pump so far this offseason as about being involved in that backfield, a little bit of a committee. I do believe that he's still going to be the starting running back. I just don't know what that's going to mean for this squad and how much they're going to rotate guys through. We were drafting him in the running back 15 to, vibes started getting bad, maybe down to running back 20, 22. I've got him ranked in week 1 as running back 25. And I would rather not play him if I don't have to. Part of the reason for that is they take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. So it's not like it's a great matchup right out of the gate either, with all the uncertainty going on in that backfield and with that squad. It was just, he was one of the toughest running backs for me to be able to figure out, okay, I drafted him probably to be a starter for my team, but I don't want to start him in week 1 against Pittsburgh. So really difficult situation for me there.
I think that's fair. Yeah. Well, Mike, you would take it.
No, you're exactly right. He's one of the guys that when I did initially ran the projections for week 1, he came in really low, and I was like, oh boy, because he's a 4th-round pick. And I just, I'll file the playbook tonight, and that'll go out on Thursdays every week, Thursday mornings. And in there, I include lineup blocks for each game, and I was on the fence with him because
I don't think you can call him a lineup block.
But you that's the thing about week 1. We've had this conversation years past. Like, you drafted him in the 4th round, most likely.
Maybe.
So
I don't know, man.
You're telling me you're going to bench your 4th round pick in week 1?
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah,
I've also not drafted Breece Hall because of the uncertainty.
Me too. Yeah, I have him in one dynasty league, I think, the one we're all in, and that's it. I was out on the Jets. Yeah, let's talk. Right. Talk about after week 1. It's a tough one for sure. So I'm with you for sure. He's one of those guys. It's kind of the opposite of the segment we're doing later. Guys you took, late round picks you're willing to start in week 1. He's kind of the opposite. He's
starters you drafted but don't want to play in week 1.
So I'm with you. But again, I did leave him as a lineup block just because I think worst case, based on the team you drafted, he's probably going to be in your lineup, at least a flex in 12-team leagues.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel good. Nothing about it feels great. It's just one of those, close your eyes, just hit submit, and you're probably going to have to live with it at least here in week 1.
There are a handful of players that are on this list, like Breece Hall, Tyreek Hill fits into this category for me, where I just want to get to the season because I'm so tired of gosh, do I have to really imagine 19 different scenarios of how this could play out? I just hope that we get to the season and things settle in a particular manner, whatever that manner is, and we can just, plan and rank and set lineups or not set lineups accordingly. I've been agonizing over Breece Hall's upside for quite.
That's why the offseason's so great, because we can all bring a different narrative to the table on how we think things are going to play out, and none of us are wrong yet. We're all able to be able to have.
We're all perfect. Have perfect records so far.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but it is funny, like especially guys like Tyreek Hill and Waddle. It's a funny example because one day you're like, man, they're just such good players, and they're gonna have to throw. The defense isn't good. Like we've seen enough of them to know that they're gonna bounce back. But then you're like, what even happened last year? Like what changed this year to last year that's going to make it better? And every day we just go back and forth that it's like, okay, we just need the games now.
The only thing that changed is that the team decided not to vote him as a captain for this squad.
And I'm just telling you, man, like the vibes are just so remarkably low between Tyreek Hill and the team right now. It just feels like Mike's proposal of him to the Broncos.
Yeah, Broncos,
like I like the
maybe
concept,
Steelers, but Broncos.
The concept of a trade, I think, makes a lot of sense. Question for you guys. Is it possible that a player could maybe win MVP this year and maybe be the highest scoring quarterback in all of fantasy football?
Oh, I just wanted to try saying no again. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Win MVP and be the highest scoring quarterback in fantasy football. Yes, it's possible those things could happen.
And not have a single pass catcher be a weekly starter in fantasy.
Oh, now that's...
I'm trying to... I know what we're talking about. Wait,
Okay,
you said top fantasy quarterback wins MVP, doesn't have a fantasy relevant starter. I mean, I think this guy will have one, but I know you're talking about.
So I'm talking about Josh Allen here for the Buffalo Bills,
Yeah.
who, of course, is the NFL's reigning MVP. He was not the highest scoring quarterback in fantasy last year, but he came darn close. With that hard charge at the end where he had back-to-back weeks with 95 points combined in 2 weeks. That was super nuclear, including the game against Daniels Lions, plus the game against the Rams. So my hardest player to rank is not Josh Allen. He is one of the top 4 quarterbacks I have ranked, even in a tough matchup against Baltimore. But his teammate, Keon Coleman, who there is a world that exists in which no Bills wide receiver is inside our top 30 week in and week out. There's also a world that I think exists, which I think is probably the most popular sentiment right now, where one of them hovers around a top 30 wide receiver, maybe a little bit lower when there are no buys, and that player is Khalil Shakir, Mr. Reliable, 4-year, $60 million extension this offseason, homegrown player, yada, yada, yada. What if there's a world in which there's an explosion between a Bills wide receiver or from one Bills wide receiver?
Yeah, there's only one guy on that list that would do it.
Would do it, and that would be Keon Coleman.
Right.
So Coleman for me is wide receiver 45 this week. It's not like I am expecting that breakout to take place right away, but I have noted that the Bills have spoken very openly and glowingly about Coleman's development this offseason. He also was the 33rd pick in the draft. Like, it's amazing to think what would happen if the Bills had not traded down from 32 to 33, which they did with Carolina, and took Coleman where the Panthers took Xavier Legette. We'd probably be talking about Keon Coleman a little bit more. It's a first versus second round pedigree. Really does matter in football lexicon. So, again, it's just, I know we're talking about week 1, and I am telling you that, like, in week 1, I am not starting Keon Coleman. But again, it's kind of a jumping off point to the full season. Like, he would be one of my favorite, like, second best ball reference, but one of my favorite best ball, like, later round picks, not last round pick, but later round picks, because I do think there's a chance that we just see a monster season from Keon Coleman. Because could Josh Allen throw 40 touchdowns this year? Of course he could.
Yes.
Right? And if he does, it means somebody is going to have probably 8 or 10 of those. Keon Coleman would seem a good bet.
Yeah, this is kind of similar to the Packers situation where it's easy to say, well, they spread the ball around. Well, they haven't had an established number 1 receiver. So Keon Coleman was drafted with the expectation that in year 1 or 2, he would be their number 1 receiver. And he almost got there last year. He started to trend that way, and then he got hurt, and then it never happened. So maybe this is the year. And there's no doubt, if you told me right now you're from the future and he finished wide receiver 9 or something, I'd be like, okay, that makes sense in this offense with his talent level and Josh Allen there. So no doubt about it, he has a high ceiling. And you're right, though, he is tricky to rank here in week 1.
I can't think about Keon Coleman without thinking about the fact that actually, I'll always remember draft day when the Bills traded with the Chiefs to move back to 32, and the Chiefs drafted Xavier Worthy.
Yeah.
And then they traded back from 32 to 33 to be able to do that. And so I feel like in Bills fans' minds, it's like we could have had Xavier Worthy, who we've seen be really good, or we could have Keon Coleman, who there's still some uncertainty on.
That was a funny, both teams are very good. The fan base is kind of going at each other last year. And early on, it was like, well, Keon Coleman's clearly better than Xavier Worthy. And then it flip-flopped. Then it was, it was very quiet in the second half of the season.
No, remember the first game of the season, though.
Yeah.
Bills versus Chiefs, Xavier Worthy scored 2 touchdowns.
Didn't he have an end around?
That's what I mean. So Worthy had the big start, then it flip-flopped, and Keon was the better one, and then it went
Worthy
back the other
came on
direction.
strong. It was like Of course, Xavier Worthy's first touch was like a 28-yard reverse where like I could have probably scored the touchdown, but like this is what makes sports talk fun. Let's be clear. I probably couldn't have scored a 28-yard touchdown. It would have been like a negative 8-yard gain if I had the ball, but Worthy sprints to the end zone.
That was one of my favorite questions when we were at Baha Mar. You had asked a bunch of.
I was just thinking that
it was a bunch of the running backs, right? But it was like, do you think was it you or was it Arda Ocal?
Yeah,
Arda asked the question like, do you think that one of us could actually get 1 yard behind a real offensive line? And all of them pretty definitively were like, yes. Just hit the hole.
Yes, if the Eagles are blocking for you, all you got to do is get out of your 2-point stance. Take the football. You have to know how to receive a handoff. And the whole trick in football, the first thing you learn if you're a running back is elbow high. You're going to elbow your quarterback in the face. When you take the football, you get the ball, you fall forward, and you'll get a yard.
That's the way.
Can we get 5 yards? Probably not.
Probably not. Could you get a 28-yard reverse? I don't think so.
Don't get confident and try to kick it outside.
No, don't do it.
Don't do it. Any other picks? You have more.
Yeah, Mike and I both have one more.
Do you guys think it's okay just with your permission if I go?
Michael.
Can I go running back here?
You do not have permission.
You know what?
Okay.
I'll allow it.
All right, I'll go. Speaking of depth charts being released, this guy was number 2 on Denver's running back depth chart, RJ Harvey.
Yeah.
And again, I think this is another one where it could be just kind of veteran deference to put J.K. Dobbins up top. I do expect this to be a split backfield, and it might look. Could it be 15 touches for Dobbins, 13 for Harvey in week 1? Yeah. But I think that'll flip at some point this season. I think you drafted Harvey in the second round for a reason. And at some point, he's going to take control. He's a little bit of it. He's an older back, a little undersized, but was effective at the college level and had a terrific combine, 4.4 speed as well. So
awesome.
Very explosive. He had the highest rate of 10+ yard runs in this class, which obviously was a great group of running backs. So I like him. I think it might take a week or two, but he is a guy that we're kind of uncertain on in week 1 in terms of what exactly his workload will be. Could it be 18 touches or 8? It could be anywhere in that range. So he's a tricky one.
And of course, to note, J.K. Dobbins has missed a ton of time in his career. Yeah. That's why J.K. Dobbins is now on his
playing
third
week 1,
team
though,
in 3.
so
Yeah,
that's why
that's true.
Yeah.
But it's a valuable player to have on your roster because by week 4, he could be the guy by himself with like Jaleel McLaughlin is his only backup that's healthy.
Yep.
No doubt.
Especially in that Broncos offense, have big expectations.
Yeah,
all right, last player I'm going to bring to the table is a veteran. I know how much Mike loves older players, so I'm going to dive into Cooper Kupp.
Hey.
Who the heck is this guy going to be in 2025? I just want to make sure that we weren't like banking too much on recency bias, so I wanted to look back at some of the stats that we saw from last year. First 6 healthy games. He got hurt in week 2, right? So we're going to throw week 2 out. First 6 healthy games. He averaged 22.5 fantasy points per game last year.
Yeah, he was awesome.
He looked unbelievable. And then his final 5 games, he had 1 game in which he reached 20. You love to see that. But the other 4 games, he didn't top 5.5 fantasy points in a single one of them, including a 3-target, 0-catch, 0 fantasy point performance in week 15, in which if you tried to start him in the playoffs, it absolutely crushed you. He just looked washed. At the end of the season, he didn't have, over those 5 games I just mentioned that he closed the season out with, he didn't have a single game where he saw more than 27 routes. Yeah. When you're supposed to be one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, but you're only running 27 routes a game, you're not on the field enough to be able to do damage. It felt like the Rams were just like, all right, you know what? We're going to let Puka do our thing, and we don't think that Cooper Kupp really has it anymore. In part, that's why they left him to be able to go to Seattle. Yep. So now that he turned 32 years old, there's a part of me that is wondering, man, am I doing this thing where it's like, this is just recency bias? It's just how we ended the season. Things didn't end great. Maybe he was banged up and he's actually better than what we thought. Or is this appropriate because he's going to an offense that has a ton of uncertainty? New head coach, new offensive coordinator, new quarterback. Everything's going to be completely different. He's playing with a new quarterback for the first time in his career. He got drafted by the Los Angeles Rams. So it feels like Cooper Kupp, again, he's not someone that you probably drafted really high, but I wonder if we're doing this thing where it's like, does Cooper Kupp really still have something left in the bag, or is he as washed as he looked last year, just given the depth of the wide receiver position? I have him outside my starting top 40 spots at wide receiver, but I just wonder if there's still some left in the tank here.
If he has a strong first week, first 3 weeks, first month, whatever it is, he's one of my favorite sell-high candidates. I think the Rams felt like this is a player who the gas tank begins the season maybe closer to like 3/4 full or halfway full, as opposed to Devontae Adams, who you guys recall last year finished with a bang.
Yep.
Like Devontae was awesome down the stretch for the Jets. Now, Devontae was also banged up for part of the season last year when he had like that hamstring that was really, really bothersome that eventually led to him being traded from the Raiders to the Jets. Good call. Yeah, he's a clear wide receiver too. There were some snaps last year that looked sort of like burnt toast for Cooper Kupp.
Yep.
I think the other reason, and this will apply more when we talk in our next segment, that Cooper Kupp is really low, is the reality that there are just so many receivers.
A lot of receivers.
So many receivers.
Yeah. I will say this. I feel like Cooper Kupp's exit from the Rams and Sean McVay kind of reminds me of Jared Goff's exit from the Rams, where it was just like McVay's had enough, and it's just we'll do anything to move on and make a change here. And it went pretty well for Jared
That's
Goff.
part of the concern, because I watched that happen, and like I know where they felt like Jared Goff was. They were ready to be done with him, and obviously I have a huge tie to that because Jared Goff's good enough for Detroit. Question is Cooper Kupp going to be good enough for Seattle?
Yeah, I will say this. I have drafted Cooper Kupp a lot because you don't have to draft him as a starter, but I think he very well could be a starter. I went in the 8th round of 12-team leagues, much later in 10-team leagues. So I feel like it's not like he has a substantial competition for that job. It's JSN, and then it's Cooper Kupp. It should be Cooper Kupp next in line for targets. So we could see 7, 8, 9 targets a game, and I think he's going to be a starting caliber fantasy receiver this year. So I took him a lot, and if he doesn't work out, it cost me an 8th, 9th round pick, so it's not that big a deal.
Part of it for me, and then we can move on. It's not like it's both Cooper Kupp and the idea that when you're trying to, at least in week 1, quantify the way that we're approaching these offenses, some of them have a bigger gap of uncertainty than others, right? We know for a fact that there are some offenses that returned the majority of their offensive line. They returned their head coach, their offensive coordinator, their skill positions are intact. That's not the situation in Seattle.
Only because Seahawks fans are going to get mad. They do have the same head coach from last year.
You're correct. You're correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. But they replaced Ryan Grubb, obviously, with things did not work out that way. And so there's a lot that I feel like is going to be different in this offense that we're trying to figure out what Seattle looks like after the first couple weeks of the season.
I think they want to run the ball, but I think JSN and Cooper Kupp are going to have pretty big target shares.
So that'll be a fun one, Mike, because one of the players there seems to be whispers. That's it, whispers.
Yeah.
That this could be far more equitable in the backfield than just the Kenneth Walker.
Yeah.
So we talked about this. I moved Ken Walker down in my rankings a couple weeks ago because he's missed a lot of time. And Zach Charbonnet's, like you said, there's been all right, Charbonnet's been healthy and he's been effective. And this might be a little more even than we thought. So I'm with you. I made that adjustment.
So, yeah, I just would note that they may want to run the crap out of the ball, but it may not necessarily mean that you should be going up on Kenneth Walker III, that perhaps maybe just holding steady or a couple spots.
I will say this. They did leave Ken Walker pretty clearly. He's number 1 on Seattle's depth chart. That has not changed at all. I think he is viewed as the better player there, the better back.
Yep.
It is a new coordinator, but
he is
coach.
By the way.
Yeah, and I agree with that. But when you miss a lot of time, and Zach Charbonnet was a 2nd-round pick, he's a good player.
Yep. All right.
Let's dive into some players that went undrafted in leagues that we have as potential starters here in week 1.
Okay, so let me just clarify that a little bit. Players that were not drafted as high or to be an immediate starter who are going as they're not guys who are undrafted.
Correct. This came out of the premise that when we did the Fantasy Focus League, we got done with the league, and Mike said, oh, this is interesting. Adam Thielen is literally going to be a starter in week 1. He's going to be the number 2 wide receiver in Minnesota, and he didn't get drafted. So it kind of spurned this idea. It's going to be tough to find 9 players that were outside the top 160 that we're ranking as starters. So these are some mid to low end draft picks or potentially undrafted guys that we now have ranked as starters in week 1.
If you have an undrafted player, that would be impressive.
Exactly right. Most of these guys were drafted in most fantasy leagues. We rank them as draftable, like maybe 10th round, 11th round, 9th round, whatever. But you already had your starting lineup filled out when you picked them. But here in week 1, whether it's matchup or it's due to circumstances, these guys are viable fantasy starters in week 1.
Absolutely.
I'll get things rolling here. This guy was probably drafted as most people have their flex or wide receiver 3/4. Well, I think is a wide receiver 2 in week 1. That's Jerry Jeudy. The Cleveland Browns, who you guys may recall at Bahamar. He was my must-draft player because I think perhaps Joe Flacco's leash is a whole lot longer than the public sort of perceives it to be right now. I think Cleveland's in no rush to get those young bucks on the field because I do think that Joe Flacco has, A, lot of reference, and B, a lot of experience. We've seen Joe operate this offense in a prolific manner, by the way. Just 2 years ago, Joe Flacco was really good. This team is really going to struggle until further notice running the football. We'll see whether Quinshon Judkins is available at any point early on this season. And the defense is good. It's very good on paper for Cleveland, but this team still might fall behind very often. In week 1, they play against the Bengals. Now, the Bengals are like a UFL team. Is the UFL even still around?
It is still around, yes.
The UFL team is the Cincinnati Bengals in the first 2 weeks of the season. They are 1-9 with Joe Burrow as their starting quarterback in weeks 1 and week 2.
I'm sorry.
Being said,
you said 1-9?
Yes. Remember, they always wreck your survivor pool, and I'm still going back to the well this week with the Bengals.
Wow.
Lock it in.
I can't believe I'm
over
doing
the Browns.
it. Yeah,
but I'm
me
doing
too.
it too. But Jerry Jeudy has an incredible matchup, right? Like the Browns could very well be trailing by a lot, and the Bengals, as we know, excellent on offense. The opposite of excellent on defense.
Yeah, I like it. Good call.
Accurate.
I have Judy 16, so I'm with you for sure.
Nice.
Still obvious question marks at corner for the Bengals. I'm surprised they didn't do more to address that in the offseason. The first one on my list is basically the poster boy for this segment. Emeka Egbuka.
One of my picks
in Tampa Bay, no doubt. No Chris Godwin.
Yep.
For a while, at least 4 games this year. Well, it doesn't necessarily need to be 4 games. He's not on the PUP list, but he'll be out for a few games. Jalen McMillan's out for about half the season, so it leaves Mike Evans and then Emeka Egbuka. He should be the number 2 receiver. The competition for him: Sterling Shepard, Tez Johnson, who's a 7th-round rookie, Ryan Miller, and Cam Johnson, who's mostly a returner. So, I mean, he's a first-round pick. He should be an every-down player here in Week 1. They're playing Atlanta. Again, a little foreshadowing to tomorrow. I expect A.J. Terrell to shadow Mike Evans as he does, which presents a pretty good matchup here for Egbuka on the other side of the field. So set up very well. This is a guy you probably took with a mid-round pick, but you'd be hard-pressed to bench him in Week 1 in this situation.
I have a PSA, and hopefully our team later can cut this specific clip. So I'm going to restart one more time. PSA, which came, this one right here? This one? I'm going to look at this one here for a second. PSA. Because a lot of people are always getting mad about this online. There are times in which a head coach or a GM or a reporter makes a comment that suggests a player is going to miss a specific amount of time. People then say, well, if the Bucs are saying that Chris Godwin is probably going to miss a month, why is he not IR eligible right away? Here's the deal. Chris Godwin is on the 53-man roster. He is not on injured reserve. He was not left on PUP. The Bucs have not yet ruled him out for Week 1. If every time a coach or a GM or a reporter suggested a player's timeline was about how long he'd be out for an injury, we in turn said, all right, this guy is automatically out. We'd have situations where guys go from unlikely to play in a week to playing that week. Ben Roethlisberger was literally ruled out 1 week and still played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I just want people to know that there is a reason why we are always following what RotoWire does. They do a great job for us, by the way, how they categorize players. And presuming the Bucs rule Chris Godwin out Friday, probably around 4 p.m. Eastern time, he will then become IR eligible. I know we talk about this often on the show, but people every single year get all bent out of shape and up in arms and saying, why can't you guys fix this? Here is the reason why. Please be patient. Chris Godwin, when he is ruled out this weekend, will become IR eligible, and you can add that extra player to your roster.
It's weird to feel to just throw other people under the bus when we know he decides.
Field definitively is the guy that decides whether players are in or out or Q or IR eligible. Obviously here at
Everything I do
ESPN
all
Fantasy.
night. I just do that, right?
You kind of mentioned that. I mean, that happened a little bit last year with Michael Pittman Jr. because we literally thought he was going to go on IR because the team talked about it.
Correct.
And then he played the next week.
It was reported as like he's a candidate to go on IR, and then it was like, no, he never misses.
Just kidding.
Yeah, it has to be team official because then if you put a guy on IR and that happens, then it's going to make your roster.
Yeah, it's going to be terrible.
It's going to cause issues for your roster.
All right. Well, speaking of players that potentially went undrafted and are starters in Week 1, or at least lower end players, Michael Pittman Jr.
Hey, what a transition.
Yeah, nailed it.
Gives us a little, Daniel Jones under center gives us a little reason for excitement. I don't feel super comfortable putting that on tape for the internet to hear for the rest of time. I don't want people to think I'm in on Daniel Jones.
We're on ESPN 1 today, right?
That's right. We are on E1 today,
Good.
yeah.
Good.
You look at everything that we know from Daniel Jones. He was able to support Malik Neighbors to the nth degree as far as a fantasy wide receiver.
Really?
That's all that matters to me right now. Mm-hmm. So I realize there are a lot of different mouths in this offense that it could be. You could replace Michael Pittman Jr. if you like Josh Downs with Josh Downs or Tyler Warren at the tight end spot, in part because this week, and another shout out, Mike, to your not only the power rankings, but the unit grades that you put out. the Miami Dolphins might not have a single starting cornerback on defense right now.
Shout out Storm Duckfield.
Yeah,
it is
best name for sure.
Best name for sure.
Yes.
But on a scale of 0 to 10, you gave them a 2 at the cornerback spot.
That might be optimistic.
Generous.
Yeah, they had the 31st ranked secondary. The only secondary that was worse than them in your unit rankings was the Las Vegas Raiders.
I think they're tied, actually. I do it by like a scale of 10.
Okay, there you go.
They're both 2, yeah.
Wow.
So it was awful. And when you look at this, it's like this should be the situation in which this team with Daniel Jones under center, these pass catchers should come out and feast on the Dolphins. Not literally. We obviously are big supporters of Dolphins. We don't want that to be
Peter friendly here.
Yes. However, if they don't go out this week and show us what they can do from a passing game perspective, I'm going to be nervous. But in week 1, given the situation with Daniel Jones being their quarterback and the matchup that they have, I'm actually in on these Colts pass catchers being some low-end starters for your squad, especially in 12-team leagues if you need it.
Yeah, that if the Colts offense gets off to a slow start against this defense, you're going to remember that the commercial of we're just warming up my arm.
That's right.
Play 6 going to be Anthony Richardson on the sideline.
The play 6
going to be getting ready to go.
That little kid,
They better.
Two things can be true at once, people. Daniel Jones can be a below-average quarterback, and he can also really help the wide receivers compared to what Anthony Richardson does.
I mean, this is the Trevor Lawrence question that I just asked you to start the show. Could Trevor Lawrence, if he's not good, support 2 top 25 wide receivers? Like Daniel Jones could do that same thing.
Yes, he could. Yes.
So,
speaking of Daniel Jones.
Stop it.
One of my options right here. Top 12 quarterback for me this week is Danny Dimes. Yeah, he is quarterback 12. I mentioned this previously. He played in 10 games last year, did Daniel Jones. He was a top 11 quarterback in 5 of those 10 games. He was 22nd or worse in the other 5. So it was a very much feast or famine nature to Danny Dimes' game. But what we know about him, you mentioned the great matchup he has as a passer this upcoming weekend, is that Dimes has an inflated ceiling when he runs the football, and they should be running him at least a little bit this week. Not to the point that we saw from Anthony Richardson. I don't think Jonathan Taylor is in great peril of losing goal line carries to Daniel Dimes, but definitely enough rushing upside to help boost the potential ceiling here for Daniel Jones in what is a very, very tasty week 1 matchup.
Love that.
DFS play, right?
I'm trying to think how I could transition that to my next one.
Let's see if we can find something.
Danny Dimes is like this sounds like maybe I don't know. I got nothing.
Who you got?
Jerome Ford. I was just gonna try and make a car reference. Ford. I don't know. Brown.
Yeah, I got nothing there.
I got nothing.
Yeah,
I got nothing. But I'm going to go with Jerome Ford. This is a guy that was a late round flyer throughout pretty much the entire offseason because of the uncertainty of Quinshon Judkins, who could sign. In an
Still
hour,
remains
he might
unsigned.
Now we're doing a pod. He
yes.
could be signed right now, or he might not sign for a few weeks. But either way, even if he signed today, he's not going to make an impact in week 1. Jerome Ford should be the lead back. And here's the thing: kind of quietly, he's been effective in fantasy and overall in terms of efficiency in this role. 6 games without Nick Chubb last year, 14 touches, 78 yards, and 14 fantasy points per game. And remember, in 2023, with Nick Chubb out basically the whole season, he was RB16 that year.
Good.
25th in points per game, but was over 1,100 yards and 9 touchdowns that season as well. Last year, he averaged 5.4 yards per carry, one of the best in the NFL. He could catch it. He could run it. They're playing Cincinnati, who we just talked about, has a suspect defense. So Jerome Ford, I have ranked, where did I have him this week? 19 in my rankings. Yep. This is a guy that's borderline, I would say lineup lock because you might be strong at running back, considering you drafted a couple early round running backs. But this is a guy that you very much can start and feel good about it.
Looking forward to seeing how much they lean into Dylan Sampson early on this season. Their 4th round pick, super fast running back out of Tennessee, but it does feel like Jerome Ford is the guy to start the season for the Browns in the backfield.
Yeah, in line to run it back again. I'm very interested to figure out how this Quinshon Judkins situation is going to work out. Have we ever had a rookie draft pick not be signed yet at this point?
Yes, they're like old day
for
holdouts,
us in fantasy football,
but it's been a while.
It's been a long time.
Not to get too much into the nuance and nitty gritty here, but it's a unique one for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, another quarterback for me that I'm going to bring to the table, Dak Prescott. I don't know if you guys heard that their defense has been impacted over the last couple of days.
Correct. DeRon Bland just got a new extension.
He did get a new contract, Field.
And Lupke today, the fullback.
Lupke, yeah.
Lupke, so they're taking care of their own. That's what everybody says about the Cowboys.
That's what they do.
They pay their guys.
Dallas takes care of their own.
Ron Bland, Tyler Smith soon.
Yeah, it's like at one side of the mouth, Jerry Jones is like, no, we want. He's like, every single time I'll take more players than one player, and then he's re-signing guys left and right, other guys that aren't Micah Parsons. It makes no sense.
Oh, baby.
I got Dak Prescott. They're taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia is pretty good. I expect them to score a lot of points. I don't think the Dallas defense is going to be very good. If we called them the Bengals of the NFC, does that seem crazy?
I do not think it seems crazy. And I actually think that while the Eagles will be excellent in some ways on defense, they're very young in the secondary. Very young. A lot of new faces. So it's at the very least a good test for Philadelphia tomorrow night. On top of that, it's easily the best wide receiver duo the Dallas has had since what? I don't even know.
I'm trying to think. Dak had Amari Cooper, and I guess Brandon Cooks have a couple of nice weeks, but I don't think it
probably
was
that.
Probably Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb when they
Michael
were
Gallup
first.
like as the 3.
Yeah,
or
maybe
so.
at the beginning.
But the bottom line is this is a really, really good wide receiver.
CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. Love what Dick Ferguson is going to do as well.
So pumped that I haven't heard or read one story about George Pickens during the preseason that sort of reminds you of a lot of the stuff we were dealing with in George Pickens. Like no play that I saw, like there was no throwing his helmet after a rep in practice or, jawing at somebody. It just seemed like George Pickens had a very business-like training camp.
Well, people often say that stability is one of the marks of the Dallas Cowboys, and so that's going to be one of the things that we'll hang our hat on. Yeah. I mean, everything that we've talked about, though, there's a ton of reasons why it makes a lot of sense. The defense I expect to suck, right? We think they're going to have to throw the ball a lot, don't have a lot of optimism in that running game.
Pickens in a contract here, too. Like, this is, like, we're talking about if he plays at a very high level, I think there's reason to believe that he could sign a deal around $30 million.
By the way, Pickens' agent is.
Same one as Micah Parsons.
Yeah, that's right.
That is going to be an interesting situation. Each of the last 3 years that Dak has been healthy, he's hit 4,400 passing yards and 30 passing touchdowns. He's got a receiving core to be able to do that, especially now that they're probably going to have to throw the ball a ton.
Only question is if it's a dumpster fire for the Dallas just going into Philly playing against this team. We've seen it happen many times. I mean, the Eagles did that to how many quarterbacks last year, and it could just be bad for Dallas.
It also feels tomorrow like a game where Philly jumps out early, like, it's 21-6 before you blink, and then it's like fourth quarter and the Cowboys have made it an 8-point game somehow.
I hope so.
Calling that right.
Yeah.
I hope not. Yeah. You know me. It's never the Eagles optimist. They're going to win 50-0. It's fine.
All right, last pick for me, and this is way more a testament to the number of wide receivers than it is, I think, the caliber of these players, but Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings, right? Guys who were both being drafted at times as like wide receiver 40. Jennings' ADP kind of went up and down because of his calf / maybe not calf injury thing. We talked about him a bit yesterday, the news of him returning to practice and a sign that perhaps a contract is getting a little bit closer there for Juwan Jennings, but I like both of these players. The matchup against Seattle, I don't necessarily love. I think Seattle's going to be really good on defense this year. Devin Witherspoon is a stone-cold baller at corner. Reek Woolen is up and down for Seattle, but there's enough talent. And again, right now, it's like San Francisco needs everybody they've got. They need George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Ricky Pearsall, and Juwan Jennings, because after that, it is paper thin among skill players.
Yeah, I'll put names on that. Brandon Ayuk's out. Demarcus Robinson's out. Jacob Cowing's out.
Yep.
Juwan Jennings, we'll see. Jordan Watkins also out. So, and Russell Gage, they just cut. They're going to bring him back for this game, but it's Sky Moore and Russell Gage behind.
It's paper thin.
That's it. I mean, those guys are lucky to be on a 53 at this point, so it's going to be Pearsall and Jennings at receiver.
That's where I'm at as well. Yep.
By the way, Reek Woolen, when did he change his name from Reek after coming out of
Reek?
Yeah,
I think he's been going by Reek.
Couple years.
Yeah,
it seems like sometimes what happens is when the guys get drafted, they go by like their government name, and then they get to the local place. Well, emphasis on the wrong one there. The local place that they play, and they go by their preferred nickname.
They choose what they want to be called, kind of like Bill.
Yeah, Bill Krosky.
That's
right. Yeah.
Are we allowed to pick our own names? Can I pick my own name if I don't want to go by Daniel anymore?
I mean, if you want to go by Dan, you could.
No, I'd like to go by Mike Clay NFL.
Wow, that works.
Is that okay? Mike Clay NFL Dopp.
Michael?
I think you should just go like completely change it, like Dak Prescott is Rain Prescott.
Right? Absolutely.
Dakota Rain Prescott. Great name. Right?
Yeah, it is a great name.
I don't know why he doesn't go with that full name. All right, last one for me is another streaming quarterback. You did a streaming quarterback. How about Drake May this week? He drafted him as a 2, as a breakout candidate, but I mentioned the matchup before. He's at home against the Raiders. He, even if the passing numbers aren't there, we expect him to add value with his legs this week this season as well. Has Stephon Diggs there now. He's going to be good to go. So I think May is set up for a good start to not just week 1, but the season. He has Pittsburgh in there, but otherwise I think it's 4 of his first 5 games are very attractive matchups. So I expect a hot start, and I think he can stream them this
To me, it's all about something. Like, it's all about how Drake May is utilized here, because last year the coaching staff completely utterly overmatched. As we talked about a million times, he didn't have a design run until week 16.
Yep.
His new offensive coordinator is, of course, Josh McDaniels. McDaniels has coached for a long time and had a ton of successful quarterbacks for fantasy and real life. He also has hardly coached a quarterback who's athletic, right? Drake May is way more athletic than basically any quarterback that Josh McDaniels coached for a sustained period of time.
Do you think we've talked to...
Go ahead.
Okay,
I'll
are you guys working on a stat or something right
No,
now?
no, no.
I'll tell you what I'm doing.
Are we missing something right
Do
now?
you think... No, you're not missing anything. I was texting our producer. Do you think that when we look back at the things... You've had 2 stats that I feel like we've utilized a couple of times this offseason.
I can't wait to get rid of those stats.
One of them is Drake May, almost 0 designed rushes.
Week 16, yeah.
And Marvin Harrison Jr., no...
That comes from Mike.
Right. Which one of those do you think we get more of this year? Do you think we get more designed runs from Drake May, or do
probably get more design runs from Drake May? It's hard to have
that many layups?
Like, you know, like if Marvin Harrison Jr. gets 15 wide receiver screens this year, that would be a lot. If Drake May, like, he could have 40 design rushes.
Do you think they both get rectified in 2025?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
What do you got, Mike? What's your
So when I looked up, I was just, as we were talking about Drake May, I was like, I was trying to remember the list of the 10 teams that voted in favor of the tush push back in May, and the New England Patriots were on that list.
On that
so
list.
remember, new coaching staff this year, so maybe they utilized it a little bit. There's probably a reason they voted in favor there. It could just be Mike Vrabel's mindset for sure, but I thought that's interesting. I wonder if they'll utilize that a little bit at the goal line.
All right, well, I kind of fudged the rules in this last one a little bit. I mean, a little bit. Because my last player is Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson was very clearly drafted.
But in fairness, we didn't like him.
You didn't draft him.
I did not draft him in hardly any leagues, if any at all, other than some best ball leagues that I had in order to diversify my portfolio. But Garrett Wilson is a guy that I do not have a lot of confidence in. He was coming off the board. ADP at
so you're
ESPN.
maybe doing the opposite here. You're saying you would bench him even though he was
I would start him.
Yeah.
I would start him, but he went undrafted, and I think he's still startable for me. But he was coming off the board as wide receiver 17 with his ADP here in week 1, though. I've got him outside my top 25. I still think he is a flex play. I don't think that he is so far down the list that you can't start Garrett Wilson, but kind of like Breece Hall, who I mentioned in the previous segment, it's kind of those same kind of vibes for me, where I still love Garrett Wilson. I still think he's worth being started. The player, the skill is unbelievable. He is a really good wide receiver. It's just figuring out what this offense is going to look like. So he went undrafted for my squads, but I still have him ranked as a starter, just not as high of a starter as I would have liked, given the fact that Justin Fields is under center.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Good list. I have a couple others here. I'll just mention super quick. Tyler Warren, I think you could stream him. Drafted mostly as a tight end too, borderline, but I think you could start him against Miami. We talked about that matchup. I did have Ricky Pearsall on my list, so good call. Hollywood Brown. Remember, know where she writes. Hollywood Brown should play a sizable role. Jalen Royals also out as well. I'm kind of curious, like, you're talking deep sleepers for like a random touchdown this week in week 1. Tyquan Thornton.
Oh my God!
Don't do that.
Lot of hype.
We got 3 minutes. I want to explain something that I wanted to do.
Trevor Lawrence is my last one, but go ahead.
Okay. Because this is an idea that I've been pitching in a couple of.
Yeah, I want to do this.
Okay, so this is my idea, and we're calling it like ultra long shot. I don't know. We obviously do long shots on fantasy football now. So this is my idea. On Friday, Mike, Daniel, and I come to the table, and this is sort of an adaptation of a bar game that you see people sometimes where we call it like 6 die. Basically, you get 6 die, and you have 3 rolls. You roll, and if you are able to get the same number after 3 rolls on all 6 die, you win whatever amount of money is in the cup. You pay like $3 to play or $1, but whatever it might be, right?
That's Yahtzee? You're basically trying to get a Yahtzee?
It's sort of like Yahtzee. Okay. Yeah, exactly. But so like if you roll, let's say on the first roll, you get 3 threes, a 2, a 1, and a 6. You pick up the remaining 3 and you try to get 3. Okay. So, there are times in which it goes for a long time. You pick up, a couple $100 out of the pot. My idea is each week we bring to the table a player that is rostered in under 5% of leagues. So we're talking deep cuts here. Mm-hmm. And we nominate that player to score a touchdown.
Yes.
And I don't know if we're allowed to put money into a pot specifically, but the idea is to call your deepest of long shots. Tyquan Thornton's probably available in 100% of leagues, Mike, but it's a great idea. Maybe we make the number under 3% because there's a better chance than not that we have at most 1 correct prediction all season. Mm-hmm. But man, how sweet would that be when you make your long shot at some point during the year? Of course, yeah.
Of course.
Like Tyquan Thornton, you're like, yeah, he might score a touchdown. Watch him have like
what this is?
one offensive.
We should name this game like after
Lottery?
either Alan Lazard or Nick Westbrook.
Akine. Dang it, that was going to be my guy, Michael.
We can name it after
I was looking through people that are under 5% rostered on ESPN Fantasy. Are we going to save this for Friday?
Let's look at the thresholds and then decide on a threshold, and then let's do it Friday.
Yeah, tomorrow. I mean, that's tomorrow, isn't it? No, it's Friday. Never mind. Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
That's tomorrow.
Yeah, we can do it Friday because if I go with Thornton, which I'll look, but I'm pretty confident I'll go with him. They play Friday night. So.
Like it. Okay.
All right. I'm in. Yeah. I love this game.
I am very much in. I got a couple of guys I'm already thinking about.
I don't know if we're allowed to put money, and we'll have to talk to the powers that be there. Like, you put whatever.
Maybe we can come up with
if
we're allowed. If not, we can find some sort of
but we can do
currency.
cookies. You want to do cookies? I'll give you
cookies. Yeah,
we'll do 2 cookies.
Yeah. All right. Not allowed to do money. We're told. All right, no money.
We'll find some way.
We'll find some way to do it. Yeah.
Well,
I can borrow Mike's car for a month if I get
that's
it.
That's it. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
Done. Sold.
Yeah.
You sold the car?
Oh yeah, I'll sell it to you.
Okay,
yeah.
that's
time for a new one.
That's gonna do it for our show today. Thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for hanging with our buddy Eric Moody in the YouTube chat as well. Make sure you come back and hang out with him every single week. We'll get more questions from our YouTube chat a little bit later on this week. But that's gonna do it for us today. Don't forget to love each other, be kind to yourself, and we'll see you guys back here on Thursday, which is our first game of the season.
Go Birds.
We'll see you guys tomorrow.